Detective Comics 1000. 1000 issues, 80 years. Lots of exciting stuff in here. There are tons of really good writers and lots of amazing, amazing artwork. So let's spend some time on this one. And first, let's go through some of the many variant covers, and I'm going to point out some of my favorites. So we got a Jim Lee one here. I always love Jim. I love the classic Detective Comics one that has the original look that you would see in the original Detective Comics. A few of them use that. We got to see the girls here, and Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn. We got an interesting Dark Knight Returns homage here. We always have the really shitty ones that are just a plain white blank one. Who buys these? Who buys these ones? We have a 1940s Bruce Timm one. This is one of my favorites. This one's a 1950s Michael Cho, and I love seeing all the different Batman here. The little kid Batman, Batman with a snorkel mask, Batman he's an alien, Batman he's a caveman, Batman with a beard. There's so much fun Batman in this one. I love it. This is the 1950s one. It's so great. One of my favorites. Got some great Capullo, one by Jock. This one's supposed to be a 1930s Batman one. It's art by Steve Rude, and it's very interesting. You see how Batman's mask is very different. And I think they're like fighting the KKK or something like that here. This Brian Boland one is pretty cool, where you see Batman and all the villains around him. I really did like this one too. Some Catwoman one. There's one with, she has the mask, one where she doesn't have the mask. This Patrick Gleason and Alejandro Sanchez one I really did like. It's actually very similar to one we saw in Action Comics as well. We have another stupid one that's just blank and it's black this time. This Nicola Scott one is one of my other favorites. I love how you see the different various costumes that Batman has had in the past. This one's fantastic. Mike Mayhew, really nice here. Jay Anacleto, really cool here. Love the coloring in this one. Miko Sayan, really cool as well. You see all these statues in the background of the various villains and then various members of the Bat family. Really cool. So many really, really cool variant covers in this. Love the tons of variants. So great to look at. Okay, let's dive into the story now. So there are 96 pages in this book. Tons of stuff. First story is by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. So he's working this case, and it takes years for him to kind of solve. There's all these intricate clues and riddles. He has to know the Greek alphabet and know all sorts of other nonsense to figure it out. It eventually leads him to this group called the Guild of Detection. And in this guild, we have Detective Chimp, The Question, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Martian Manhunter, and this character named Slam Bradley. Now, I didn't know who Slam Bradley was. Googled him. He was a detective character that was in the very first issue of Detective Comics, so it does make sense that you would see him in this book, sort of celebrating the history of Detective Comics. So Batman's talking to this Slam Bradley, and they are discussing all the world's greatest mysteries and how this guild of detection, that's what they work on. And Batman is kind of asking, like, why did you guys put all these intricate clues for me to find you guys? And Bradley states that every answer in the end leads to another question, and in a way that's sort of what makes detectives great, and what makes the chase so fantastic. I thought this story was okay. I don't know if this is in continuity and there is this guild of detection and we're supposed to believe that all these members are part of groups like the Justice League and the Justice League Dark, as well as being part of this guild of detection group. Just so many groups everybody has to be a part of. But I thought this story was a nice celebration of Detective Comics. Next story is by Kevin Smith, art by Jim Lee. Jim Lee is one of the best artists in the biz, and I thought the artwork looked fantastic, really helped accentuate the story. So this one, Batman is undercover as Matches Malone. He goes to this pawn shop where this guy is selling all these collectibles of like Gotham City villains and like all of their tech and what have you. And we go through a nice nostalgic trip down memory lane. We see this fantastic art. We see all these villains. Anyway, this guy is running the pawn shop. He's selling the gun that murdered Bruce Wayne's parents. and matches Malone. He decides to buy that gun. He brings it to the Batcave, and Alfred is like, "This is a little bit morbid for you to be putting the gun that killed your parents in a trophy case." And Batman's like, "It's not a trophy. He's going to melt it down and turn it into a chest plate for his suit. He's going to burn the metal that killed his parents and turn it into something useful." So I thought this was an interesting story. This was my favorite in this Detective Comics 1000. I thought it sort of hit the most emotional moments, and I liked the idea of sort of tying it back to all of Batman's history and these various villains. I love that kind of character of this pawn shop guy that sells all this stuff. And then I sort of liked the note of, Batman turning this gun from something that did so much harm into something that can be actually put towards good. So yeah, this was my favorite of the group. Next story is by Paul Dini, art by Dustin Nguyen. So there's this henchman named Newt Brody, and he's this henchman that sort of accidentally messed up all these various villains' plans over the years. So he would always become a henchman and go work for like the Scarecrow or the Riddler or Poison Ivy, and he would like accidentally reveal the Riddler's secret codes, or he would destroy Poison Ivy's plants, all accidentally. But it turns out that this Newt Brody was actually members of the Bat family in disguise over the years. I thought this was okay, kind of fun. I mean, Paul Dini, he's the guy that did the Batman the Animated Series, and it kind of does sort of remind me of that a bit in the artwork style and sort of the tone of the book. I didn't love it, but I thought it was a nice nostalgia trip. Next story by Warren Ellis, art by Becky Cloonan. So there's these terrorists, and they failed to take the hospital hostage. So now they're on the run. Batman's sort of leading them to this warehouse where he's going to take them all down. It leads to a confrontation in the end where Batman talks to their leader, who has like a suicide vest, and Batman manages to talk him down and talk him out of going through with his mission. Batman says like, "Look at me, I'm already dead. I'm trapped in this place, and all I do is haunt the living. Is that what you want for yourself?" And somehow this manages to make this terrorist want a better life. So he gives Batman the detonation device, and Batman sort of saves the day. This was okay. This was an okay story. The next one is by Denny O'Neil, art by Steve Epting, and I thought this was a horrible story. This is my least favorite by far. Absolutely hated it. Leslie Tompkins, which by the way, she's drawn super old, way older than she usually is. She's like preaching at Bruce, at Batman, and she's saying that she feels bad for him for letting his parents' death consume him. And Batman is so cruel to the criminals that he fights. Eventually, some teenagers want to rob them both at gunpoint, and Batman beats them up, and Leslie says like, "Stop, don't hurt them." And Batman's like, "You feel sorry for these people? These people were just robbing you." And she's like, "I don't feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for you." It's like, why in the celebration of Detective Comics do you have a story where Leslie Tompkins is like bitching Batman out and saying that he's a bad person? And also, I'm fine if you want to deconstruct Batman and analyze him, and even if it makes him look bad, that's fine. But the way Denny O'Neil did it in this story just didn't really make sense. He didn't really make a good case for why Batman is bad. And I thought this just came off as tone deaf, and I thought this one was really bad. Next story in this issue is by Christopher Priest, art by Neil Adams. So there's this Chinese student, and he's found dead. It eventually leads Batman back to the League of Assassins and some guy named Tan Luhan. And supposedly this story will get picked up later. Did not like this one. Next one is by Brian Michael Bendis, art by Alex Maleev. So this one has the Penguin and Bruce Wayne, and they are all both super old. And the Penguin is talking to Bruce Wayne. And the Penguin is saying that he knew Bruce Wayne's secret identity, Batman's secret identity. And then he gives this, tells a story of back in the day, all the villains were trying to figure out Batman's identity. And Penguin eventually deduced it because he figured it had to be someone rich, and he knew it wasn't Lex Luthor because it just wouldn't make sense. So he guessed it would maybe be Bruce Wayne, and he sort of followed Bruce Wayne, looked him up on the internet, and eventually he figured it out one night because the bat symbol came on, and Bruce Wayne left this restaurant he was in, and Penguin was sort of able to figure it out. Now, he was going to kill Bruce Wayne, that way he can finally beat Batman, but he sort of decided against it. I think he was just maybe scared. I think he was just scared of killing Batman and that he wouldn't be able to do it and what the repercussions would be from that. So he kind of never did it. But he's talking to Bruce Wayne now because Bruce Wayne's super old and he's like, but I just want you to know, I knew it was you and I could have killed you if I wanted to. And Bruce Wayne actually kind of flips the tables and he electrifies the Penguin and he's like, I knew that you knew. So this was okay. This was an all right story. I like that Bruce Wayne was sort of coming up over the Penguin in the end. And I like the way that they jumped when they were old men. So that was kind of interesting. Next story is by Geoff Johns, art by Kelly Jones. This one I really did not like. It was just surprising because I love Geoff Johns. He's one of my favorite writers, but in this one, Batman is old. He has a bat dog. He has a wife and Catwoman. He has a daughter going by the name Echo. And then Damian is there as sort of like an adult Robin. And they're all working some crime scene together. And it seems like all the criminals seem to have been taken care of and there's not much crime anymore. But then all of a sudden there's this crime where these 12 people died around this birthday cake. And it turns out that the character that killed everyone at this table is known as the April Fool, otherwise known as the son of the Joker. And I guess the son of the Joker left a note saying that it was him. I just didn't get this. Like, who is the son of the Joker? And what's the deal with this story? I didn't know what Geoff Johns was trying to do in this one. Next story is by James Tynion IV, art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno. And this is a story about Bruce Wayne taking Dick Grayson in and introducing him into the world of Robin and if it's a good idea. So he's sort of like contemplating, should he bring this Robin in? Is it really safe for him to do so? And this was a sort of an all right story of Batman and Robin's relationship. Next story is by Tom King and art by Tony Daniel and Joelle Jones. This one is a pretty pointless story. It had some kind of intriguing dialogue between the various members of the Bat family, and it sort of led to them taking a nice Bat family picture, which I did love that. I like the artwork in this story, but overall, I didn't think there was really much to this story. And the last story in this book is by Peter Tomasi and art by Doug Mahnke. Artwork is gorgeous. Artwork is gorgeous. So Peter Tomasi, he's the one that's writing the Detective Comics right now. So, his story was supposed to sort of lead into where we're going to be following up in future issues. But it's not really much of a story here. It's more so just a whole bunch of full-page artwork with some, like, random words and, like, poetry written on it. And in the end, we get this tease on the last page of this Arkham Knight character, which will be coming in the next few issues. So I didn't love this story either, but the artwork was gorgeous. We're getting to see some nice full-page spreads here. Overall, I thought this was a very interesting book. Lots of fun stuff here. I thought most of the stories were not that great. I don't think any of them were, like, amazing. None of the writing was amazing. My favorite was the Kevin Smith one, but it was just sort of just a mild enjoyment of that one, but the artwork in this book is gorgeous. So much great art. We got some real top talent in here, and I think that's what makes this book worth getting, is to just look at all this artwork and sort of have an overall celebration of Batman and all of his history. So this one is definitely worth picking up just to look at it. I wish some of the stories were stronger, though, especially for such a monumental issue. I would have liked a little bit better writing, but it's not like they had a lack of talent. They had some of the biggest comic writers in the biz writing in this one, so it's kind of surprising that none of the stories really jumped out at me, but I still kind of enjoyed this book. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. What were some of your favorite stories in here? Let me know in the comments.